How about the cognitive domain? Here we also see some significant changes as people get older, especially in this late life stage from 60 years old onwards. Specifically, there's a general slowdown. This is a general characteristic of old age, and one of the main reasons why we have such strong prejudice against the elderly in our society is especially in Western cultures. Just think back to that time when you were behind an old person at the supermarket checkout or behind that particularly slow moving car, right? There's a reason why people who are old move and think slowly. One of the main reasons is a decrease or a decline in processing speed or reaction time. This refers to the time that it takes for someone to perceive a stimulus, to process it, and subsequently react to it. This declines significantly in old age. Another cognitive decline that we witness is in the ability to pay attention, specifically divided attention, which relates to multitasking, paying attention to different tasks simultaneously. And the decline is not necessarily in the ability to multitask, but really because each task takes so much longer that it becomes more effortful and more difficult to do them all simultaneously. Another cognitive domain in which we witness a decline is memory, of course, as we get older, and specifically in working memory, or the ability to retain information while also conducting another task simultaneously. For example, say you're trying to hold your credit card number in mind while you are accessing an online store and making a purchase, right? So that's working memory, and its related concept of short-term memory, which is a little bit more extended in time. So there's a decline in both of those types of memory as opposed to long-term memory, right? Being able to recall things from the past, the long-term past. And there's also a decline in explicit memory, conscious, deliberate recall of information, versus implicit memory, the more unconscious muscle memory type of storage and retrieval. So there's a decline in memory, but some types are more impacted than others. Another change that we notice in old age is that in neural networks, and this refers to the connections between brain cells, between neurons. There's a decrease in the amount of neurotransmitters that is passed between neurons, so the messages that nerve cells send to each other, as well as the connections that they make between each other, or synapses. So neural networks are weakened in general, although there is good news in the form of neuroplasticity, or the brain's ability to change itself as a result of experience. So whereas this is significantly reduced in old age, neuroplasticity still exists, even if it's not at the level that it was in infancy or toddlerhood, which is the peak of neuroplasticity in humans. In old age, we start to witness a high incidence of dementia, which is a progressive, irreversible decline in cognitive ability, specifically impacting faculties such as thinking, memory, language, judgment. There are various types of dementia. For example, vascular dementia refers to dementia that is brought about by small strokes or mini strokes that then impair blood flow to brain cells or neurons, causing their death. This is differentiated from the far more common type of Alzheimer's dementia. And this type of dementia is caused by neuronal loss, due to Alzheimer's disease. The elderly can experience both types of dementia once they hit a certain age. So, on the topic of Alzheimer's disease, this is a disease that is becoming more and more prevalent throughout the world as global longevity increases. And it refers to a progressive, irreversible brain disorder that is characterized by gradual deterioration of memory, language, thinking, judgment, and eventually even physical functioning. This is due to the deterioration of normal brain proteins like amyloid beta and tau that start to accumulate and clump around neurons and within neurons, and turning it into what we call plaques and tangles, eventually strangling and killing neurons, starting with areas that are responsible for memory like the hippocampus, but eventually spreading throughout the cortex and the entire brain, shrinking it in the process and killing individuals. Alzheimer's progresses very gradually. Usually we divide the disease progression into early, middle, and late stages. In early stages, we see forgetting of basic information, for example, names, addresses, misplacing objects, and maybe people complaining of having trouble thinking. In middle stages, we start to see a more serious impairment in memory, language, reasoning, and people start to take more inappropriate actions like wandering, feeling disoriented or confused as to time or place, and engaging in reckless behavior like leaving the stove on, for example, until eventually they hit the late stages of Alzheimer's, where they may be bedridden and unable to feed or take care of themselves. The good news is that physical exercise and social engagement may preserve cognitive ability in late life, although they are inadequate. They may provide inadequate protection against Alzheimer's, unfortunately. When individuals hit the late life stage, they may vary in their level of functioning. We generally refer to this as activities of daily living, or ADLs, which can be categorized as either basic or instrumental ADLs. Basic ADLs refers to the ability to care for oneself, such as dressing, sitting, toileting, grooming, and they generally suffer a mild impairment until later life stages. So impairment in basic ADLs is relatively rare. On the other hand, we have instrumental activities of daily living, which refer to more complex behaviors that is generally directed toward a goal, like, for example, housekeeping, handling medications and doctor's appointments, dealing with finances. These can start to show signs of decline when we see, for example, early stages of dementia, or specifically Alzheimer's dementia. So when individuals start to have trouble with their ADLs, they have a few options. For example, they can be placed in an assisted living facility, which is designed specifically for the elderly that are having issues with their instrumental ADLs. It is a very fast growing option in the United States, and assisted living facilities try to provide sort of a homey, humane environment that is somewhat different from the other option of nursing homes. Here, these are facilities that are designed for individuals who are having issues with their basic ADLs, where they have support staff that help them with dressing, grooming, toileting, etc., as well as they provide 24/7 medical care. Finally, the last stop would be hospice care. And here the focus is essentially on a smooth process of dying. Individuals will die regardless, so hospices try to provide quality of life with dignity in that process. Palliative care is very important here in terms of pain management and providing a final stage of life that is free of pain and is dignified. Obviously, culture plays a huge role regarding these issues and options for the elderly. For example, in collectivist cultures, family members are expected to take care of their elderly. There's a very strong sense of filial obligation, and therefore individuals may be unwilling or even ashamed to place their parents or grandparents in these facilities, whereas in more individualistic Western cultures, that may even be the norm. However, there's another big factor, which is that of course, socioeconomic status. Here, an individual's level of income plays a huge role because these may not even be options for people of a low SES. In the United States, Medicare is very much focused on cure-oriented services and therefore would not cover any of these options.